then let's come to the context of Africa and see what is playing out in Africa. I have written, my first book was called The Art of Leadership for Africans, which looked at how Africans are performing their leadership role and asked questions like, how come they're not doing it well? So that book is kind of like a manual of what do leaders do. As I've said, I've written several articles on leadership, on how people need to what they need to do. But specifically, based on my own experience interacting with African leaders have many issues. And this began with the colonial experience that they had. I will speak as a person who was born in the 1950s and therefore saw the tail end of colonialism in Africa. So I can speak a little bit about that generation of Africans. The first leadership group in Africa came to their jobs with the perception that the government that they have inherited is not their government. It is other people's government, white people's government, Europeans' government. So they approach government leadership not as their own personal activity, personal goals, but the goals of the white man, the colonialist. So they tend to look at the government or their positions from the perspective of what they can get. What can I get being a permanent secretary of, say, Minister of Finance, Undersecretary, Principal Assistant Secretary, Senior Assistant Secretary, or whatever their position is in the ministry? They're looking at it from the perspective of what they can get. If they're politicians, they're looking at it from the perspective, if I'm the minister of this, what is in it for me? How much money do I get? See, those are not leaders, whether it is the political leaders or the bureaucratic leader. If you want to read a good book on leadership, I would suggest you read Max Weber. He has a good book that differentiates between politicians and technocrats or bureaucrats. But anyway, we're not going to get into that today. So Africa's initial leaders were not leaders. They don't even know what leadership is. You can quote me on that, because as I just indicated, they felt like they were working for foreigners, for white people. The government is not their government. The revenue is not their revenue. They're not working to develop their people. They're just there to make a living. Well, that's not what a leader is. A leader is not there to make a living. A leader is there because he wants to do something for his people. He's committed to doing things for his people. What is government? We can talk a little bit about political science here and talk about the need for government. Government is that, according to Thomas Hobbes, in his book called The Leviathan, people left alone are chaotic, individualistic, self-centered. They cheat each other, they beat up each other, they steal from each other. That's not a society. So they decided that their lives are very, very, very unstable, nasty, brutish, and short. Everybody's fighting with everybody. So they set up a government. The idea of a government is to coordinate the people, make laws so that everybody abide by the same rules so that people can survive within that political environment. Government is of the people, for the people. That's what I'm trying to say. Government is not something for foreigners. It's for you. You say, this is my government. I am going to use it to improve my people's skills, my people's welfare. I'm going to use it to make sure we have law and order in my community. Not, I'm going to use it to become a rich person, like most Africans do. You go down the African line, those who you call your presidents and whatever, they're just in it for themselves. They're not there to build roads. I had an interview by Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore once. He was talking about the resources available in Africa, how if Africans had leaders, within 20, 30 years, he says, they could have modernized Africa. If they knew what to do, build roads, all the infrastructure, hospitals, schools, whatever, those things can be done. Everybody in our modern world needs to go to school. We all know that. So did you build elementary schools for everybody in the country? Did you build secondary schools for everybody in the country who can go to it? Did you build enough universities for those who can go to universities? Generally speaking, 1/3 of the population anywhere in the world can go to universities. So did you plan to build universities for 33% of your population? Did you build technical schools, vocational schools, to train those who cannot go to universities? So what is it you're doing? No infrastructural development, roads, bridges, railways, seaport, whatever. No, you don't do that. So you're not a leader then. You're not seeing the problem in your society, and you're just there to make a little bit of money. And the African leaders also, I think this is due to colonialism, were raised in such a manner that they blame other people for their issues. If you look at the politicians of the 1940s and 50s, even 60s, in Nigeria, Ghana, all over West Africa and Africa, they were always blaming the white man, white man, white man. And then they're where they are, they think, because of what the white man is doing to them. Colonialism. Then they got their independence and they began to blame neocolonialism. There is some truth to all these things. You can blame slavery, you can blame colonialism, you can blame neocolonialism, but those are critical attitudes. Those are not leadership. Because a leader does not blame, he takes responsibility for what he's doing. Okay, so we inherited a situation where Europeans structured African countries to take our resources. What are you doing about it to reverse it? Did you come in there to take your own share and steal? And then when your country collapses, you blame them. You blame Europeans, you blame white people, but you are really responsible for it. You point one or two fingers at other people, three are pointing back at you. What have you done? It is really childish to be blaming other people over and over and over. I'm not saying that there is no interconnection. I understand systems theory. What happens in every part of the system affects all parts of the system. So European behavior does affect Africans. Manipulation by the center does affect the periphery. I know all these things. The critical point, though, is what are you doing? So African leaders tend to be centered on blaming other people for their their shortcomings. And this has to be overcome. Yes. People around you contribute to your issues, but you contribute more to them. So leaders then are trained to have what you might call, what psychologists call, internal locus of authority. They look inside and say, I can do this. And they go do it. They're not there, what we call external locus of authority, where you're blaming everybody in your environment. All those you blame seems to be partially correct, but that's not going to change anything. Those who make things happen take responsibility. They take accountability. They say, I am going to do this. Hold me accountable for what I'm going to do. They're not there blaming everybody. Within multi-ethnic countries like Nigeria, the blaming game, it is the fault of other tribes. Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, Edo, Efik, all of them, each of them blaming the other for the country being a mess. The country is a royal mess. Who's responsible for it? Instead of saying, I contribute to it, I will point fingers at the Yoruba, at the Hausa, at the whatever. Stop. Nobody wants to hear you keep pointing accusatory fingers at other people. People want to see your resume, what you have done. Are you there taking bribery? You're a policeman, or you're on the streets of Lagos or Nigeria, you stop cars and you're taking money and you're taking bribery, and then you talk about how the country is not doing well. Are you in the ministry collecting bribery to do any job? Everything in Nigeria is done through bribery. And you know it, and I know it. And you travel all overseas. You see the policemen, how professional they are. You go through the airport. Nobody's bribed. You follow rules. They check your passport. They wave you in if you have the visa. If you have things you brought in, you declare to the custom. Now, go through Nigerian customs and immigration and try to do that. See how many people you're going to bribe. Now, if that is what you're doing, why do you expect efficiency? Why do you expect things to work? Take the buildings in Nigeria. Take an airport. Who's cleaning up? Have you gone to an airport in America or Europe? The mass of janitors, custodians, cleaning up. It can be there for 40, 50 years. It looks clean every day because there are people working in it, cleaning it, and people are supervising them. On the other hand, you go to a Nigerian airport, to the bathroom, it's all broken down. Fishes everywhere. It's like nobody's in charge. All they will do is point fingers. Okay, so we need to train leaders in Africa to take charge, take responsibility, and stop blaming everybody for the mess our continent is in. First of all, nobody wants to hear all those blaming anymore. People are tired of hearing you moaning and blaming. They want to hear what you have done. Okay, so leaders then take charge and do things and take responsibility for accomplishing the goal they set. They don't tend to blame other people. That doesn't mean they don't see what other people do. They do see it and work with it, but they're not out there looking for excuses as to what to do, what not to do. There are many types of leaders, which I'll be elaborating in future talks. There are leaders in every field of human endeavor. There are educational leaders who work in the educational sector. You went to school, you can tell us whether your elementary school teacher is a leader, whether the principal or the headmaster is a leader. You know this, whether your headmaster or principal of a secondary school is a leader. If you went to university, whether the professors and the president, whether they're leaders. Most Nigerian university presidents are not leaders. They don't even know what it is you're talking about. In the United States, for example, let's say me, I went to the University of California. It is funded by the state, but most of its money comes from the money acquired by the president, the administration of the school. The presidents go out to their alumni, ask them for money. Every month I get a letter from my schools asking for money. The university presidents get money from everywhere. They hire people to write grants so they can get money to do scientific research. They go after grants money given by the federal government or state government, whatever. What do Nigerian university professors and university administrators do other than look at the petty chicken change they're giving, steal most of it, and then complain? How much money are they generating? They're not leaders. So let's move on. They have to be trained to be leaders. So leaders are those who are able to bring resources into whatever organization they're in, whether it is educational leaders, health leaders, those in the healthcare business, they're leaders there. Sports, they're leaders in the sports world. They're leaders in government. They're leaders in finance. They're everywhere you have specific leaders. But all of them must have general understanding of what leaders do and then specific training in their area of focus. If I was providing this talk to a live audience, I would pause and ask for questions at this point. Let me just conclude by saying that in my opinion, most leaders in Africa have mental health issues. And I can speak as a person who have dealt with the mentally ill for many years. There are many types of mental illness. I will talk about them in future talks. There are those we call Axis 1, which means those with psychosis, things like schizophrenia, bipolar affective disorder, delusion. You don't find those in leadership, really, because they are living in their own world. Those who tend to be in leadership positions are those with personality disorders. Personality disordered person is a normal person with problems. Let's say narcissistic personality, which is playing out in the United States, where the American president or former American president, everybody knows is a narcissist. Everything centers around him, self-centered. There are leaders who are paranoid. Many African leaders have paranoid personalities. They think everybody's out to get them, so they're out killing people. There are all kinds of personality disorders, which is not for me to review here, but I'm just letting you know that they're found in leadership. They're found in every business organization. And therefore, you have to be able to make sure that your leaders have some kind of balance. No human being is 100% mentally healthy. All of us have physical problems. We also have mental problems, personality problems. The critical point is to elect into leadership positions those who have desire to improve your society. Next time you go to elect your leaders, whether they're politicians or hire people to run your business, make sure they understand what leadership is all about. So I am going to end today's talk at this point. If you have any questions, you can always write me and read my books, and we can talk, have other things to discuss. But right now, this is enough on leadership.